Welcome back to Live Now from Fox. At this hour, we are following breaking news as it relates to the conflict in the Middle East. You're getting a live look out in Beirut, Lebanon. As the Associated Press is reporting this morning, Israel unleashed its largest wave of airstrikes across Lebanon since agreeing to a ceasefire with Hezbollah last week. We're learning that they killed at least 11 people Monday after the Lebanese militant group fired a volley of projectiles as a warning over what it said were Israeli truce violations. The projectiles were apparently the first time that Hezbollah took aim at Israeli forces after the 60-day ceasefire went into effect last Wednesday. The Associated Press goes on to say the increasingly fragile truce aimed to end more than a year of war between Hezbollah and Israel is part of a wider regional conflict sparked by the devastating Israel-Hamas war in Gaza. A lot to dissect, so right now we want to bring into the conversation distinguished lecturer in terrorism and homeland security with the University of New Haven, Ken Gray. Ken, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning, Janae. Glad to be with you again.
So a lot to dissect, and I like how the Associated Press kind of wrapped it up at the end, saying this is part of that wider scale conflict that dates back to October 7th, and depending on who you ask, dates back further than that with the ongoing conflict that was already there. But set the stage for us, because a lot of people were confused. Is there a ceasefire? Is there not a ceasefire? The word ceasefire was there. We thought it was being adhered to, and then just a few hours, we saw fighting from both sides.
Sure. So the supposed ceasefire went into effect last Wednesday, but the term ceasefire here does not stop either side from acts of self-defense. And so Hezbollah attacked Israeli troops in South Lebanon, and in response to that attack by Hezbollah on the IDF, Israel has in turn attacked Hezbollah yesterday, killing 11, and again today. And so there is a ceasefire in effect. However, that does not mean that all fighting does stop at this time. These minor skirmishes, and despite the fact that 11 people died, it's still in reality minor skirmishes so far, does not mean that the ceasefire is not still continuing on. They've got to get through this 60-day period here with minor exchanges on both sides like this to be able to get into a more solid ground about long-term ceasefire. But we are in a fragile period of time right now.
Thank you so much for that. And I want to further add to those implications of the confusion surrounding the ceasefire, because literally the day it was announced, you could see a caravan of cars of Lebanese people that were arriving back to their homes, if the home was still standing, because we know the airstrikes have been back and forth in real time. And then they arrived to still see that fighting still continues. So you flee the conflict thinking you can return home to safety, just to find out that it's still a place of war.
Sure. So the area south of the Litani River is supposed to not have any Hezbollah troops in there. It's not supposed to have any IDF members in there. It's supposed to be a neutral zone, and that is not being observed on both sides. After the ceasefire was declared, you saw Hezbollah members coming back with flags on motorcycles back into the South Lebanon, a violation of the ceasefire agreements. But as you pointed out, many of the people that thought they were going back to their homes arrived to find that their homes did not exist or was badly damaged because of the conflict going on. So the ceasefire, again, is something that that is a period of time to try to settle things down and to try to stop this conflict between Hezbollah and the Israel. But there is going to continually be exchanges throughout this period of time. Hopefully, they'll be able to keep it limited and consequently not violate terms of the ceasefire. It's interesting that the ceasefire in Lebanon there between Hezbollah and Israel has potentially jump-started talks about a ceasefire with Hamas. The differences between the two is that with Hezbollah, their current leader of Hezbollah decoupled the requirement for the fighting against Hamas and the Gaza Strip to cease. On the other hand, with Hamas, Hamas is trying to continue to exist. Israel is trying to wipe out Hamas. And so a ceasefire with Hamas is very difficult. A ceasefire in Gaza would not be that difficult if Hamas were to surrender, but that is not going to happen. So completely different requirements to come up with a ceasefire there in the Gaza Strip. The Gaza Strip is continuing to erupt. There is fighting across the Gaza Strip, and this is not over yet.
Ken, I'm glad you brought up Hamas. I actually want to get to this tweet put out this Tuesday by Israel Defense Forces. They say 13 months later, we are still eliminating terrorists who participated in the October 7th massacre. They go on to say during ongoing operations in central Gaza, our troops eliminated several terrorists through targeted strikes, including 7 who participated in the massacre. And I wanted to show this because it further adds to the point that the conflict with Hamas is far from over, though we've seen out in Egypt those conversations from both sides. Hamas saying that they do want a ceasefire, but they continue to terrorize the Israeli people. Just seems kind of convoluted to what their gain actually is. Also, it further shows how big Hamas is because we continue to see these posts put out by Israel Defense Forces saying this person has been eliminated. And for some people, they thought Hamas was much on a small scale, but clearly not.
Yeah, clearly. So Hamas wants a ceasefire so that if they get a ceasefire, they continue to exist. And if they continue to exist after the end of this conflict with Israel, you might say that Hamas has won. Hamas will then go on to gather in new members and to rebuild their capabilities and would remain a threat to Israel. And so Israel, their end goal is to totally eliminate Hamas. Hamas's end goal is to survive and rebuild. The Palestinian Authority and Hamas have been coming to terms as to how they're going to run the Gaza Strip after a ceasefire is announced and once they are able to reform control of the Gaza Strip. This shows the difficulty here for Israel in that the Palestinian Authority has conceded much to Hamas and that they're working with Hamas to run the Gaza Strip means that Hamas will continue to exist if this comes to fruition. So I think that Israel will not agree to a ceasefire with Hamas under these terms.
Ken Gray, always a pleasure to have you on the show. We appreciate your candidness and perspective on this topic. Is there anything else you'd like to add? Anything we need to be keeping a watchful eye on as all of these conflicts continue? And of course, we can't forget about the conflict out in Syria as well.
Yeah, well, there is a deadline that has been set by President Trump or President-elect Trump. He said that on January 20th, if the American hostages and the Israeli hostages are still being held by Hamas, that there will be hell to pay for it and that he will bring great power against those holding hostages unless they are released. So I think that he's drawn a line in the sand and he is planning to use American force to ensure that hostages are released. So we will see how that plays out.
We definitely will. Ken Gray, always a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.